West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théères, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Good evening. I'm Mehdi Hassan, the former President of the United States, today threatened America's Jews. Not a statement I thought I'd ever be saying, yet here we are. We are 23 days before Election Day in the 2022 midterms, and Donald J. Trump released this statement on his social media platform that reads, in part, quote, US Jews have to get their act together and appreciate what they have in Israel before it's too late. Before what is too late? Too late how? Well, the tendency might be to dismiss his words as, oh, that's just Donald Trump being Donald Trump. That exact instinct is what I want to start with tonight, what I want to challenge tonight. Because what he is saying is not normal, is not okay. We should not shrug at this. We should not become numb to this. It is precisely because we have become numb to Donald Trump and his allies that they keep escalating their rhetoric, including anti-Semitic rhetoric, and the rest of us keep normalizing it, when we should have been demanding consequences for that kind of hate speech long ago. And to be clear, Trump didn't become an anti-Semite overnight. I mean, remember the time in 2018 when the then president told Jewish Americans gathered at the White House to celebrate Hanukkah that Israel was their country and the United States was this country? Take a listen.
I want to thank Vice President Mike Pence, a tremendous supporter of yours. And Karen, and they go there and they love your country. They love your country. And they love this country. That's a good combination, right?
On the remote chance that Donald Trump is watching tonight, Jewish Americans are Americans. They are US citizens. Israelis are from Israel. Do I need to demonstrate by drawing it in Sharpie on a map? Then there's the next year, 2019, when Trump insulted Jewish Americans as ignorant and disloyal. Yeah, his words. Have a listen.
I think any Jewish people that vote for a Democrat, I think it shows either a total lack of knowledge or great disloyalty. All right? No, not all right. And how about last year when Trump said that Israel owns the United States Congress? Literally one of the oldest anti-Semitic tropes out there. No, really, he said those words. Have a listen.
The biggest change I've seen in Congress is Israel literally owned Congress. You understand that 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And it was so powerful. It was so powerful. And today it's almost the opposite. You have between AOC and Omar and these people that hate Israel. They hate it with a passion. They're controlling Congress, and Israel is not a force in Congress anymore. It's just amazing. I've never seen such a change. And we're not talking about over a very long period of time. But I think you know exactly what I'm saying. They had such power. Israel had such power, and rightfully, over Congress, and now it doesn't. It's incredible, actually.
What's actually incredible is that he has been able to get away with this anti-Jewish rhetoric, hate speech, conspiracism for so long. The former president, the de facto current leader of the GOP. And don't even get me started on that time he praised white nationalists at Charlottesville shouting, "Jews will not replace us," as very fine people. Or the time Trump was quoted as saying, according to one of his casino bosses, that he only wanted short guys in yarmulkes counting his money. And here's what's so important. Trump's anti-Semitism is so dangerous right now. Because, don't forget, it was 4 years ago this month, October 2018, in the run-up to the last midterm elections, that Republicans were pushing the unfounded conspiracy theory that Jewish billionaire philanthropist George Soros was funding a caravan of Central American migrants headed for the US border. And on October 27th of that year, 11 Jewish worshippers, including a 97-year-old woman, were gunned down at the Tree of Life synagogue in Pittsburgh by an alleged shooter who is reported to have echoed those Soros-based anti-Semitic Great Replacement conspiracy theories. Even after that horrific mass murder of Jews, Trump continued to fuel that unfounded conspiracy. When asked if Holocaust survivor George Soros could be funding the caravan, Trump said, and I quote, "I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised," he said. So yeah, none of this is new, but that's part of the problem. We have been tolerating a Trump in the White House, a Trump on the campaign trail, a Trump out on the golf course, whipping up hatred and stoking anti-Semitism for 7 long years now. And it just gets worse and worse. As a Muslim, I've become used to Islamophobia on the right. Sadly, I've become used to the mainstreaming of anti-Muslim hate. But anti-Semitism, thankfully, had always seemed off limits. Like a third rail, it seemed untouchable, at least publicly. As Jonathan Chait wrote in New York Magazine, for 3/4 of a century, anti-Semites were locked out of major American politics, or at least had to keep their bigotry quiet. Now the door is open. So wide open, in fact, that Trump has been joined by an army of mini-Trumps, all pushing the same anti-Jewish nonsense. Only 4 years after the Tree of Life shooting, the Republican nominee for governor in Pennsylvania, Doug Mastriano, has used this midterm election campaign, his own gubernatorial campaign, to repeatedly attack his Democratic opponent, Josh Shapiro, for sending his kids to an elite Jewish day school. Just last week, Marjorie Taylor Greene and her Jewish space lasers fueled yet another conspiracy that Soros and the late pedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein were somehow financially linked. Why and how? Something to do with banks, of course. Meanwhile, Green's fellow GOP member of Congress, Paul Gosar of Arizona, has been openly attending and speaking at white nationalist conferences, including one organized by an accused Holocaust denier. There's also Trump supporter Ye, formerly known as Kanye West, who went from threatening Jews on Twitter last week to once again this weekend making even more hateful, conspiratorial, anti-Semitic remarks in his media appearances. So now is not the time to stay silent or to give the GOP a pass on this issue. President Joe Biden recently called out Trump's MAGA philosophy as a kind of semi-fascism, he said. For me, using that semi is a little too generous. And look, people can argue over the exact definition of fascism. But the one thing that fascist movements across the West have always had in common is this: they go after Jewish minorities in their midst. That is the most common factor. So understand what is going on here. These are not isolated or unconnected acts of anti-Semitic hate. When you see Donald Trump or Marjorie Taylor Greene or Paul Gosar or Doug Mastriano all dabbling in ancient anti-Jewish conspiracies and tropes, it's all part of the same thing: the rising and dangerous fascism on the American right.
It is Wednesday, the 19th of October of 2022, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef, and our daily special is Smothered Benedict. Wednesdays will no one rid us of these meddlesome priests. No one will. Okay, not one. Hey, how are you? I'm hanging in there myself. I've been dealing with this bone-on-bone issue in my left knee. when the knee, I should be getting a knee replacement sometime. I was on the list, and then the pandemic hit, and now it's getting worse, and I don't really have the time until my dear mom recovers from her hip replacement surgery. But it is, I must confess, getting to a point where it's getting harder and harder to care for her because I can't walk. It's very difficult, actually. I'm on crutches, and it gets me around, but, you can't really carry a whole lot when you're on crutches. How do you carry in a breakfast plate? Well, you do it with one crutch, and it doesn't feel very good. Anyway, it feels better than if I had no crutches, and I got to tell you, I wouldn't be able to. I tried. I was able to hobble around, and then it just kept getting worse and worse, and now I'm on crutches. And I have to take the dogs in today for their grooming. And Gunner, the English Bulldog, is not a small dog. The little Yorkshire, Ginger, she's easy. But Gunner, I've got to figure out how to, because he won't crawl up into the car himself, into the back seat. I have to lift him. And he's quite heavy. So we'll see if I can do it. When you have no base, it's really hard. Boy, oh boy. Hopefully, I'm going to be resting after the show, get my leg up, and I took a Tylenol, acetaminophen. So hopefully it won't hurt as bad, but the swelling is still pretty bad, and it's grinding. I can't seem to find a position where it's not grinding, and every time it grinds, it hurts to high heaven. It sure does. Don't do what I did. And what did I do? Suffered knee injuries playing football. What an idiot, huh? What an idiot. Well, too late now. I'm suffering it, and I guess that's the American way. It must be. Speaking of the American way, what's up with Kevin McCarthy threatening to shut the government down? What's up with him saying that he's going to do something with the debt ceiling, which would be detrimental to the economics of the United States of America? Oh, that's right. They are sabotaging everything so they can blame it on Joe. And then we have to listen to Nazi fascists like Marjorie Taylor Greene say that we are just so, we being Democrats, we are so just beholden to power. We'll do anything. We're killing Republicans. What? Where? Where are we killing Republicans? I mean, I don't really see much even in the way anymore of rebel monuments being vandalized. But you got neo-Nazi Patriot Front idiots, incels, destroying the Arthur Ashe Memorial. What's up with that? Oh, that's right. Arthur was black. And he might have been gay. Regardless, when there are reports, and I got to tell you, there's a lot of this happening that just doesn't get reported on the national press. If you go look in the local press, you'll find a lot of vandalism being perpetrated by right-wing groups, like against synagogues, Planned Parenthood, the library. Now, I don't see very many liberals doing that. So when Marjorie Taylor Greene says that we are violent and we're killing Republicans, where? I mean, if that was happening, that would be plastered on page 1 on every newspaper across the country, not just the national papers, but every local one too. It's the same when they purport that our cities were burned down in the summers, the summer of hate, but by Black Lives Matter. To the point that the FBI even believed it, and they don't understand why they have to go after these insurgents that ransacked the Capitol. Because they don't think it's any different than what Black Lives Matter was doing, and I'm saying Black Lives Matter didn't do anything. The protests were peaceful by day, and then at night, agent provocateurs from right-wing groups and cops perpetrated violence, and then Antifa and Black Lives Matter is blamed. I'm just saying. This is exactly how they did it in the run-up to Nazi Germany. Blame the Jews. But apparently, so many ignorant people out there have no idea. They have no idea about what Nazi Germany was really like. They're not taught the Holocaust because it would make people upset. We can't teach that. It'll make the little kids upset. The only people who don't want the Holocaust being taught are Nazis and their sympathizers. And if you find yourself saying, well, I don't know, this Holocaust history might be a little bit too much for my little Janie and Johnny, you might be Nazi adjacent. You just might. Think about it. Of course, none of my listeners ever go that route because you wouldn't be listening to this show. You wouldn't. So when I say you, I mean that general you to those repugs out there, the maggots, who don't listen to anybody. And if you tell them to do something, they'll do the exact opposite 10 times worse, just so they can show you. Kick the libs. That's what it's all about. Okay, well, it's not all that it's about, but that's the main motivator. Kick the libs, stay in power, make money by stealing money. Okay, it's the best of all possible worlds when you're a maggot. Mm-hmm. So Marjorie Taylor Greene went to a Union monument, and she purported that it was a Confederate monument. She's such an idiot. It really is. And I suppose, is it scary to think that Kevin McCarthy would elevate Marjorie Taylor Greene to a bunch of committee assignments, maybe even chair? Is it possible that Trump, if he is able to wrest power once again from, all that's well and good, that he would appoint Marjorie Taylor Greene to be Attorney General? What? Yeah, because they don't care about our government. They don't care about America. They don't care about representative democracy. That's why we have Herschel Walker running. That's why they put up a Marjorie Taylor Greene and a Lauren Boebert. I would even put Sarah Palin in there. They didn't care about our government. They don't care about democracy. They hate America. Oh, yeah, they say, well, we're going to make America great again, but it's not the America that we all know and love. Equal protection, due process for all. They don't want that. They're fighting against that. To the point where you got DeSantis and his goon patrol going out there arresting black felons because apparently they voted when they were told they were able to vote by government entities. Oh, yeah, fill out the registration. You can vote. So they filled out the registration, and now they're going to be incarcerated. Mm-hmm. It's the old slave patrol. We don't want you a part of this community. You're a rabble-rouser. Yeah, well, all I wanted to do was vote. Yeah, you rabble-rouser. You got a warrant. Got to take you in. Well, why did you tell me I could vote when I couldn't? I don't know. Fact is, I'm just like, doing my job. Which, if every cop was forced to read The Banality of Evil by Hannah Arendt, would know that just doing your job is no excuse. It just shows the banality of evil. Okay. Well, I could go on, and you know that I could, but why don't we delve into what we have curated for you today here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy at the top. Yeah. Mehdi did lay it down very succinctly. We cannot allow Trump to normalize anti-Semitism in this country. We just cannot. On the rest of the menu, the USDA announced $1 billion in debt relief for 36,000 farmers. Are any of them black? The Biden administration will hold the first ever lease sale for offshore wind energy on the West Coast. And NFL owners say removing Daniel Snyder merits serious consideration. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where the German government announced that it had removed the country's cybersecurity chief after allegations emerged of links to Russian intelligence. And Russia's role in the Burkina Faso crisis comes under scrutiny. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, to the right of the page is the chat room link, and the chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. To the left of the chat room link across the page at our homepage at netrootsradio.com, there is the link to our Patreon site. And if you could become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio and help us pay our bills, it would really help. If you could afford an espresso-type coffee drink and send those funds to us once a month, it really does help us pay our bills, and then we can fly under the radar and continue this powerhouse of resistance against dark forces arrayed against not only representative democracy in the great United States of America, but representative democracy around the world. And we cannot allow it to happen, and we thank you for your generosity. And I guess I got to tell you, keep it up. We're going to need it. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, you can do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that. Thank you, Tom. Follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam. I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Co's 10 minutes before showtime. And that's, of course, where the real reportage is, and the full articles as well. And you can find those show notes and links on Daily Co's if you follow my Twitter timeline, because I have all sorts of things to say, don't I? I do. Follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West, and pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, etc., etc., etc. And, of course, the deep archive of the Netroots Radio library of shows over the past 11-plus years can be found at the Internet Archive at archive.org. Okay, this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy is out of the Associated Press by David Pitt. The federal government announced yesterday, Tuesday, a program that will provide $1.3 billion in debt relief for about 36,000 farmers who have fallen behind on loan payments or face foreclosure. The U.S. Department of Agriculture announced the Farm Loan Relief Program, funded from $3.1 billion set aside in the Inflation Reduction Act, allocated toward assisting distressed borrowers of direct or guaranteed loans administered by the USDA. The law was passed by Congress and signed by President Joe Biden in August. The USDA provides loans to about 115,000 farmers and livestock producers who cannot obtain commercial credit. Those who have missed payments, are in foreclosure, or are heading toward default will get help from the USDA. Financial difficulties for farmers may be caused by a variety of issues, including drought and transportation bottlenecks. About 11,000 farmers or farm borrowers are delinquent or on direct or guaranteed loan payments for about 60 days or longer, are receiving automatic electronic payments to get them current on their loans. Each farmer with a direct loan received about $52,000, and those with guaranteed loans received about $172,000. The total cost for this group is nearly $600 million. Farmers who receive this help will get a letter informing them that their payments have been made and they will remain current until their next annual payment is due in 2023. Another $200 million has been used to immediately help 2,100 farm borrowers after their loans have been foreclosed but still owed money and had their tax refunds and other resources taken by the U.S. Treasury. The money will be used to pay the money those farmers owe to give them a fresh start. The USDA said farmers in this category received an average of $101,000. Another $571 million will be used to help several additional groups, including 7,000 farmers who, during the COVID pandemic, delayed loan payments to the end of their loans. That will cost $66 million. 1,600 farmers that face bankruptcy or foreclosure will get help on a case-by-case basis with individual meetings to assess their problem and find solutions at a cost of $330 million. 14,000 financially distressed farm borrowers facing cash flow problems who asked for help to avoid missing a loan payment will receive additional assistance. And the money announced is the first round of payments designed to help ensure the farmers stay in business or re-enter farming. The remainder of the $3.1 billion will be used to help relax unnecessary loan restrictions and provide further assistance to be announced later, the USDA said. Jennifer McDermott of the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. The Biden administration will hold the first ever lease sale for offshore wind energy on the West Coast. The December 6th sale will target areas in the Pacific Ocean off Central and Northern California, the first U.S. auction for commercial-scale floating offshore wind energy development. The administration hailed the upcoming sale at a news conference for offshore wind developers and experts in Providence, Rhode Island. We're not just committed to the country's transition to a clean energy economy, one that combats climate change, creates good-paying jobs, and ensures economic opportunities are accessible to all. We're actually taking action and driving results, Bureau of Ocean Energy Management Director Amanda Lefton told the group. The final sale notice for the auction will outline the details and lease terms for 5 areas off California, enough for 4.5 gigawatts of offshore wind to power more than 1.5 million homes and create thousands of new jobs, she said. The notice will include lease stipulations to promote a domestic supply chain and create union jobs. Hundreds of offshore wind developers and experts gathered in Rhode Island to talk about the future of clean energy, how to grow the offshore wind industry, and address shared challenges. The nation's first offshore wind farm opened off the coast of Rhode Island in late 2016, but with 5 turbines, it's not commercial scale. J.C. Sandberg, the American Clean Power Association's interim CEO, said Lefton's historic announcement marks a significant milestone for offshore wind in the United States and on the West Coast. President Joe Biden set a goal of deploying 30 gigawatts of offshore wind by 2030 using traditional technology that secures wind turbines to the ocean floor, enough to power 10 million homes. The administration announced plans last month to develop floating platforms in the deep ocean for wind towers that could vastly expand offshore wind in the United States. Biden hopes to deploy up to 15 gigawatts of electricity through floating sites by 2035, enough to power 5 million homes. The plan targets sites in the Pacific Ocean off California and the Oregon coast, as well as the Atlantic in the Gulf of Maine. Mark Maskey and Nikki Jabala of the Washington Post brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. On a charged day when the controversy surrounding Washington Commanders owner Daniel Snyder dominated the public conversation, Indianapolis Colts owner Jim Irsay said he believes there are grounds for NFL team owners to consider voting to remove Snyder from their ranks, and Snyder sent a letter to his fellow owners denying allegations made against him and calling for unity. I assume we're going to get into more and more discussion on that, Irsay said. It's a difficult situation. I believe that there's merit to remove him as owner of the Commanders. I think it is something that we have to review. We have to look at all the evidence, and we have to be thorough in going forward, but I think it's something that has to be given serious consideration to. Irsay spoke on the issue for nearly 15 minutes before a large group of reporters at a hotel at which the owners were holding a one-day quarterly meeting. There was no vote on Snyder's ownership taken by the owners yesterday, Tuesday. It would require a vote of at least 24 of the other 31 owners to remove Snyder. Tanya Snyder represented the Commanders at the meeting. That's not what we stand for in the National Football League, Irsay said, and I think owners have been painted incorrectly a lot of times by various people and under various situations, and that's not what we're about. There's just a lot of closeness in this league, and I don't think some of the things I've heard, it doesn't represent us at all, and I want the American public and the world to know that we're about as owners. Oh, really? Okay. The league and owners are awaiting the findings of an NFL-commissioned investigation of Snyder and the Commanders being conducted by attorney Mary Jo White. It is highly inappropriate but not surprising that Mr. Irsay opted to make statements publicly based on falsehoods in the media, a Commander spokesperson said. It is unfortunate that Mr. Irsay decided to go public with that statement today while an investigation is in process, and the team has had no opportunity to formally respond to allegations. The Commanders have made remarkable progress over the past 2 years. We are confident that when he has an opportunity to see the actual evidence in the case, Mr. Irsay will conclude that there is no reason for the Snyders to consider selling the franchise, and they won't. As the meeting concluded, Snyder sent a letter via email to other owners, according to a person with knowledge of the matter. While we are all fierce competitors on the field, we are part of this organization because we love football, our teams, and our fans, Snyder wrote in the letter, a copy of which was obtained by the Washington Post and which was signed by only him. Having the privilege to own a franchise in America's sport is something I know none of us take for granted. Falsehoods and lies being spread about any of our organizations hurts our league, our players, and our fans, and we simply cannot let them go unchallenged. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodall said the owners were updated on the progress of White's investigation during Tuesday's meeting yesterday. It is an ongoing investigation, Goodall said. That's what we talked about. When Mary Jo White is done with her investigation, we will still share that with the membership and share it publicly, as we committed to before. And I was very clear with the owners that there's no reason for any speculation at this point in time or a discussion until we have the facts. And so that was my message to ownership, and there was little or no discussion. The House Committee on Oversight and Reform is investigating the team's workplace and could issue a final report in the coming weeks. The Office of Carl A. Racine, D.C.'s Attorney General, has nearly completed its own investigation of the commanders in Snyder and is planning to take further action in the case, according to a person familiar with the organization. Irsay became the first NFL owner to say publicly the owner should consider removing Snyder. I believe it is in the best interests of the National Football League that we look it squarely in the eye and deal with it, Irsay said. I think America, the world, expects us to as leaders. Goodall said he was not surprised nor disappointed by Irsay's comments. I just said, and I said it to the membership, speculation without facts is not a very positive thing to do, Goodall said. I think everyone deserves to have facts and to make sure those decisions are made with facts, and the membership will have that opportunity. The NFL launched White's investigation after Tiffany Johnston, a former cheerleader and marketing manager for the team, said at a congressional roundtable in February that Snyder harassed her at a team dinner, putting his hand on her thigh and pressing her toward his limo. Snyder denied the accusations, calling them outright lies. In June, the Post reported details of an employee's claim that Snyder sexually assaulted her during a flight on his private plane in April of 2009. Later that year, the team agreed to pay the employee, whom it fired, $1.6 million in a confidential settlement. In a 2020 court filing, Snyder called the woman's claims meritless. It is a regrettable situation, Irsay said. It pains me. The founders of this league taught me you have to protect the game and protect what we're about. This is not what we're about. In April, the House Committee detailed allegations of financial improprieties by Snyder and the team. In a letter to the FTC, Racine and Virginia's Republican Attorney General, Jason S. Myers, announced they would investigate, and the team has denied committing any financial improprieties. Of course they do. All right, that brings us to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with these stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. This week, from ear to ear and all the way to the bank, the horror pick drawing him into the cinema right now is called Smile. It's an extension of director Parker Finn's 2020 short, Laura Hasn't Slept, a redux of which we get during the first substantive scene of the full-length. Our hero is Dr. Rose Carter, a confident young therapist working at a psychiatric facility. Things take a turn when a graduate student shows up there claiming that an entity that no one else can see is pursuing her and who, during a psychotic episode, commits gory suicide in front of Rose with a shard from a broken vase, of course with a sick, eerie smile on her face. In classic genre style, we soon find out that the victim is onto something as Rose's life starts going sideways after witnessing this incident, which we learn parallels an event from her own life, generating a side plot that figures prominently at the conclusion. Not unlike other recent horror picks, think It Follows, The Grudge, or The Ring, we're dealing with a subtle and contagious demon coming from trauma. Only late in this one do we see its corporeal representation. Finn gives us jump tricks, which are enhanced by close-up shooting, often at weird angles where intimate space can be violated in a flash. Another technique used is having the shot sequences venture down an alternative and usually psychotic storyline before we're snapped back to reality. Kevin Bacon's daughter Sosie brings off Rose from put-together professional to desperate spiraling loon with strong support from Cal Penn and Jesse Usher. Like the old song said, smiling faces show no traces of that evil that lurks within. If a fan of smart horror, check out Smile. Heart patients, though, check with your physician first. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. Catch up with us at take2moviereview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Karen Hopkin. When someone tells you to sleep on it, they're usually suggesting that you avoid making rash decisions. But sleep is also widely known to help you remember things you've learned. Now, a nap might seem inconvenient when you're cramming for an exam, but don't worry, because a new study shows that rats who stayed awake after engaging with novel objects could remember seeing those things a week later, sometimes better than rats who'd slept. That suggests that long-term memories can be laid down without having to lay down. The results appear in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences.
We know that memory consolidation is promoted by sleep.
Marian Inostroza of the University of Tübingen. She says that decades of studies have shown that sleep helps to transform, or consolidate, recent experiences into lasting memories.
However, there is also evidence for consolidation into long-term memory during wakefulness.
And against this background, we became interested in the question whether sleep is the only condition, is a critical condition for the formation of long-term memories.
Jan Born directs the Institute of Medical Psychology and Behavioral Neurobiology at the University of Tübingen. For Born, the bottom line is,
do we need sleep to form long-term memories?
To find out, the researchers allowed rats to investigate a novel object. The animals were then moved to a resting cage, where some were allowed to snooze, while others were gently kept awake.
And we do that by very gentle knocking the cage where the animal is placed, or by taking very carefully the cage where the animal is located.
1 week later, the rats are returned to the testing cage and presented with the object they'd encountered previously, as well as one they'd never seen before. Now, if the rats remember the original item, they should spend less time nosing around it than they do sniffing the new thing. And it turns out that's the case for both rats that rested and those that pulled all-nighters, or all-afternooners. So, in this test, all the rats remembered the objects.
However, the kind of memories formed during sleep and during wake, they differ.
In our study, we could at least disentangle two very different kind of memories. On the one side, memories which are for recognition of an object, independent of the context, and on the other hand, those memories which are context and space dependent.
So, rats who stayed awake were actually better at remembering the original object than their fully rested counterparts, but only when the item was presented in a new location. Rats who'd gotten some shut-eye after their initial study sesh seemed thrown by the change in venue, and they showed no signs of recognizing the familiar objects when they appeared out of context. That suggests their memories were context-dependent, whereas for the rats who skipped the nap, context didn't matter.
In life, of course, wake is always followed by sleep.
So Bourne says the two paths to memory consolidation most likely complement each other, with sleep putting waking memories in their proper place.
So the wake state may, for example, serve to enhance the different events experienced during the wake phase, keep it in your memory until you go into the sleep phase, and the sleep phase puts these objects, these events into the right context, and in this way enhances a full-blown episodic memory.
Now, as to whether you might want to avoid dozing after you cram for an exam,
I wouldn't recommend this.
Of course, rats aren't people, and people aren't rats, so it's not really a fair question.
I think it is a little too early to infer, based on our results, what students should do to be optimally prepared for an exam.
Nevertheless, Bourne does come down on the side of sleep.
I'm still convinced, although we cannot infer this from our studies, I'm still convinced that sleep leads to the more effective, overall more effective type of memory formation.
Plus, sleep gives your brain a chance to rest.
When you are not fully rested, it is in general more difficult to retrieve any kind of memory in comparison when you are fully rested.
And the findings suggest that 40 winks should help you remember not just the who, what, and when, but also the wherefore. For Scientific Americans, 60-Second Science, I'm Karen Hopkin.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
Make sure you're registered to vote. Go to rockthevote.org. Vote for Democrats up and down the ticket. This message, a public service from all the fine people of netrootsradio.com.
What is Question 4? I'm Bill Newman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute. Last July, the Massachusetts legislature overwhelmingly voted for the Work and Family Mobility Act, a law that allows qualified Massachusetts residents to apply for a driver's license regardless of their immigration status. Before driving, the law requires the license applicant to be trained, tested, licensed, and insured. The law will allow immigrants without status to make essential trips to work, to get their kids to school, to medical appointments, and to the grocery store. Similar laws already exist in 17 other states, many of which have experienced measurable improvements in road safety. After all, in case of an accident, it's important that all parties have insurance and proper identification. One reason this law, this public safety measure, is supported by a majority of district attorneys and sheriffs and major city police chiefs. But after the law passed, an opposition group gathered enough signatures to put the issue on the ballot this November. The fourth question on the ballot is, should the law be retained? Please don't be confused by the wording of Question 4. Voting yes will keep the law in place. And remember to turn the ballot to the back. That's where Question 4 is printed. That's where you can vote in favor of both human rights and public safety by voting yes on Question 4. The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because freedom can't protect itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1980, in what the Chicago Sun-Times called the biggest labor management war of the last 2 decades. The battle for union recognition at 10 J.P. Stevens textile plants ended in victory. The Amalgamated Clothing and Textile Workers Union led the union's campaign. At the time, J.P. Stevens was the second largest textile manufacturer in the nation. The Amalgamated Clothing and Textile Workers Union's campaign targeted 10 of their southern plants. 7 of them were located in Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina. The company refused to recognize the union. In 1976, the AFL-CIO declared a boycott against the company. But Stevens distributed so many brands that it was difficult to make the boycott effective. The next year, the union began a new tactic, a highly organized corporate campaign. The goal was to put pressure on the banks and financial institutions that dealt with J.P. Stevens. That March, 600 individuals bought 1 share of stock in the company. Hundreds of representatives from union groups, religious institutions, and community organizations supporting the union attended the company's shareholder meeting in New York City. They came to directly confront management. Outside, 4,000 protesters marched in solidarity. In 1979, the struggle inspired the classic labor film Norma Rae. Sally Fields won an Oscar for her portrayal of a woman who helped bring a union to the cotton mill where she worked. The real-life Norma Rae was Crystal Lee Sutton, who was fired for her union activity. She went on to become a union organizer. The union's success at the 10 southern plants was considered a major victory for the cause of labor. However, Stevens remained vehemently opposed to unions at their other locations. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. We always begin, whether from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River and the Rogue River Valley of southern Oregon, on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 46 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting highs around 85, a little bit warmer than normal. And we should have abundant sunshine with winds light and variable. Clear skies overnight, winds remaining light and variable, lows in the mid-40s. And then sunny skies during the morning tomorrow will give way to mostly cloudy skies in the afternoon. Highs around 80, winds light and variable. And it looks like on Friday, sometime in the afternoon, it looks like, we should be getting the start of an enormous amount of rain coming through the whole week, and let's only hope that happens, because we always need water from the sky. Ragweed pollen is rated low here in Rogue River proper. The air quality index for the region is good at 34 parts per million, and that UV index has notched down to another level, down to low at level 2. Well. The angle of the sun has drastically changed. Barometric pressure is rising at 30.22 inches. Visibility is at 8 miles, and relative humidity is at 100%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. London is 61 degrees and sunny. Paris is 70 and sunny. Rome is 80 degrees and fair. Kyiv is 55 and partly cloudy. Kabul is 52 and clear. Hong Kong is 75 and fair. Tokyo is 58 degrees and clear. Sydney, Australia is 66 and mostly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 61 degrees and sunny. And New York is 50 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Loveday Morris and Vanessa Guinan-Bank of the Washington Post brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. The German government announced that it had removed the country's cybersecurity chief after allegations emerged of links to Russian intelligence. The Interior Ministry said it had decided that Arne Schönbohm, president of the Federal Office for Information Security, should step away from his duties with immediate effect. The move comes after a German satire show this month accused Schönbohm of maintaining indirect contacts with Russian intelligence through the Cybersecurity Council Germany, a body he helped found a decade ago. Branding him a cyber clown, the program, ZDF Magazine Royale, pointed out that while running the government's top cybersecurity agency, Schönbohm continued to maintain contacts with the foundation. That stirred controversy because of the foundation membership of Proteolien, reported to be a rebranded German arm of the Russian cybersecurity firm Infotex, founded by a former KGB agent. The allegations have permanently damaged the necessary public trust in the neutrality and impartiality of Schönbohm in his position, Interior Ministry spokeswoman Britta Balaj-Harman said in a statement. This is all the more true in the current crisis situation regarding Russian hybrid war, she added. However, she said Schönbohm would be presumed innocent until details have been thoroughly and vigorously investigated. The removal is not final and subject to the results of the investigation, she said, citing German employment laws. German officials have warned of an increase in Russian cyber warfare, espionage, and disinformation campaigns in the country amid Russia's war on Ukraine. Following the allegations, the Cybersecurity Council Germany said it had ejected Proteolien after it became aware of its links to Russian intelligence through a media inquiry.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Sam Mednick of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Within hours of Burkina Faso's second coup this year, the head of Russia's shadowy mercenary outfit Wagner Group was among the first to congratulate the new junta leader in West Africa. In a message posted on Telegram, Evgeny Prigozhin praised the mutinous soldiers for doing, quote, what was necessary, end quote. That same day, pro-Kremlin political analyst Sergei Markov posted that the Russian people had helped Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the new coup leader, and he predicted that Burkina Faso's new leadership would turn to Russia for help instead of former colonizer France. As Traoré now solidifies his grip on power in Burkina Faso, questions are already swirling about his relationship with Russia and how much it played a hand in catapulting him and his allies to power. The recent coup could give way to a more assertive Russian policy towards Sahel, said Samuel Ramani, Associate Fellow at the Royal United Services Institute, a defense and security think tank. The Burkina Faso coup that we just witnessed could be the first example of Russia playing a part in instigating a coup rather than just capitalizing on pre-existing unrest. Asked about the coup in a call with reporters earlier this month, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov would not comment on prospects of establishing ties with the country's new leaders. And the Kremlin denies links to the Wagner Group, though Western analysts call it a tool of Russian President Vladimir Putin. Wagner mercenaries already have been establishing a foothold for Russia in at least a half dozen African countries, including Central African Republic, Sudan, and Mali, which is battling an insurgency similar to the one in Burkina Faso that has killed thousands and displaced some 2 million people. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here tomorrow for Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we will meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.